Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and today is Wednesday. It's August 11th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and we had a really we just spent the day going sideways. You can see we opened up here at the highs of the day, and we traded down a little bit. Well, we traded inside those levels. I mean, this is just really some sideways stuff here. However, we had a little bit of an upward bias early on that looked like it was going to turn into a downward bias, and then we were back up. So we're just meandering around uh, at this same price level. If we take a look at our daily chart, you can see we've broken out and we're finally pushing higher, but we're still just kind of a little bit of congestion right there. Maybe we're going to push on up and make at least a measured leg up here, or measured, not a measured leg, but a measured move equal to the width of the original range. That's very likely if we continue higher. Wouldn't surprise me if we turn back down and come back and test this again, or even come back into this range. So, but this is following typical price action. We broke out here. Of course, it temporarily fails. It comes back and it's tested this a few times here, the previous resistance, and so far it's acted as support, and now it looks like we're going higher. Doesn't mean we can't come back down. Just follow the 2000 tick chart, follow the price action, and go with what it gives you. Don't try guessing at it because it's really hard to know. That's why the ranges are hard to trade. You know, we know what's likely to happen on a breakout. It fails at least temporarily and comes back and tests the breakout area, which it did here. So now we could go higher, although it wouldn't surprise me at all since this is congestion for it to pull back and come back and test this again. So we'll just have to see. But that's what it looks like on the daily chart. So on the big picture, we actually uh, traded up here. And there was something else to consider. I didn't talk about it this morning because it had pretty much already been filled by the time I posted the chart. But notice we opened way up here and the high of yesterday was here. So that distance between here and here was a gap on the daily chart. So no surprise that we traded back. It does kind of surprise me that we traded down this far before we bounced, but clearly you would after that one leg right here, you would expect a possible another leg as well. And once we started going lower, we got much more than a measured leg, but we'd already filled that gap by easily not long after 8:30. So um, just look at that time there. I mean, within 6 minutes we'd fill the gap. Again, the gap, this was the highest point made yesterday right here at 44.38 and a quarter, and we opened right here at 41.75. So we had to trade back and fill that gap. And you notice after we fill it, we quickly went back up, but we just couldn't go any higher above that resistance, and prices turned back down again. So that's what we're looking at on the big picture, on that gap being filled. Early on, it didn't like much was going to happen at all, and then we got this big boost here right around 7:30. It's going to be off of some of this news here. The core CPI, those can often be uh, big ticket items that make the market move. Sometimes they're a dud, but they're not. Nothing's like the FOMC, but sometimes they do. And you can see here we got a quick burst up. And if you saw this trap, notice the new low, and you get a first entry and second entry, and it breaks lower and turns and heads up. If you got time, buy one, buy there. I wouldn't wait for this. You can't buy this way up here, even though it would have worked. Don't even attempt it. I mean, that bar alone is 31 ticks in that bar. So really, the only way you could enter this one was on the trap when it turned down and turned up, because the failure occurred right here when it broke above this. Let me make this bigger. When prices broke above this red bar, that's when the failed second entry short occurred. And that's also notice the new swing high and the first entry and second entry. So it's also a second entry long. So a couple of different reasons. If you catch that one trade, it might be all you need today. But we run up here. We get our first close outside this short-term spike up. And this is, not only do we have the yellow channel, we also have a spiking channel here. So we're running up on this spike, and then we get a first entry, and then we pull back and get a second entry here. this broke lower first and turned and went out the upper side. So I don't know if I'd wait and go long right there. Um, you just about have to trade this in an engulfing or skip it. And it's a little bit congested. I like the trade though, just simply because that's a nice spike up, and that's the first close, and it's a two-legged correction. With that three attempts to go lower, that's probably going to trap people. You'll probably get a scalp out of that, but this one's real close. You could almost argue for it to be green, but I like the trade. Of course, we run on up, and then we start this little channel down. We get a close outside here. I just don't, it's too congested up here. You wouldn't want to trade a breakout pullback like that in that situation, not going short. And of course, we get the close outside, new low with an overshoot on top of that. And then we get a first entry and then a second entry. Technically, this breaks higher and then turns down. So you could look at this as the second entry, and maybe it fails here when it goes above this bar. But that's just too congested. So I would treat that as just like a first entry and then the second entry here. And this actually breaks higher and turns down and comes back up. So of course that's not a signal bar there, but that makes this a signal bar. So when it breaks higher there, you can get on with it. And that the fact that it's probably a trap when it breaks higher there, I like it. So then we run up here, and early on I just saw this as going sideways. By the time I posted the chart, I wasn't really looking at this blue here until we broke lower and came back and turned down again. I didn't really look at this blue as being a channel. It just didn't fit properly, but in the end, you know, after the fact, it's a little easier to see. So I didn't play it this way. In other words, I didn't have this on there. I was playing it like this right here. But once you realize this is here, you want to put it on. And you can clearly see we were working off of that. I still don't see any trades in there. Maybe a long here on this trap. But the problem is you're in this lower half and there's a lot of congestion there. And the last time we didn't even get back to the midline, so we may not get back to the midline again. So in order to trade that, you got to have enough room to get out before that midline. And you can see we turned down there again. Really, it was a trend line, not the midline. So that makes that a little suspect. So the only way to enter that is if you can let it break higher and drop a limit order in and hope you can get in with enough room to get out before that midline of that yellow congestion there. And of course it again turns down here. It's just tracking down that trend line, but we come back real quickly and get a close outside. There's actually a second entry short right there. Notice the new low, first entry, second entry, but not a very good signal bar, a little bit congested. If you had a good signal bar there, big bearish signal bar, I wouldn't have a problem going short. There is a lower high here. I didn't mark this at the time because I was still concentrating on this sideways and just didn't see this blue channel. But if you saw this blue channel, by all means, I like that trade right there, just as long as you got enough room to get out for that low. So you may take that one. And I still look at this as one leg down, so a little two-legged correction right there and a second entry short. But I'd look at that as a failure too, because that looks like one leg down, so you try to go higher once, twice. And there's going to be some people down here bottom picking. And so that may act as a good trap. So either way, it's a second entry short, and you might even look at it as a failure to the upside. And we came back and tested that midline right there, and it turns down. And you get a lower high here, but it's an inside bar, and it gaps over and moves down and then comes back. So I'm not, I just don't think you probably want to enter there on that inside bar. Because this could be the low right here. You could adjust that. It turns out it's a little further down here. But once we bounce there, you get a, this is really just a first entry, but you get a triple test here. You made that high, you test it once, you test it twice. This actually breaks higher and turns down, and it's such a bearish bar. I think you can go short on the trap there in the triple test. I don't have the resistance line across there, but you can see that and really it's more than a triple test. This was actually a, you might even look at this because we kind of tried to go higher, but I would look at that as the first swing up. So really your triple test came there, but your signal bar is not good enough, but you get a secondary trap right there and a second opportunity to enter it. And you actually get a lower high right here on a second entry because you got a new low right there. So first entry, second entry. So I like going short again right there. Actually, this one I made it green just simply because it's a first entry, and there is a little bit of, it does look a little congested there, but that's such a big bearish bar. You probably get a scalp out of that at minimum. And of course we drop on down again. But we bounce here, we shoot right through the EMA. You get a first entry, and then you get a second entry. So when it broke higher here, you could treat that as a failure and a trap, and we're probably going at least to the other side of the channel, but we may have already had a break here, and so that could mean we're going higher. We still have never made a retest of this high on the yellow channel, so doesn't mean that that's not what this is all about right here, trying to make a retest of that high. So I like that entry. And of course we run on up, and we're just too far, we're too close to that trend line because you could get another push down. You're too far away from the EMA, so no entries in here. And then we just start working sideways, and this again is so tight. This would be the only, there's actually two entry possibilities here and here, but the signal bar doesn't qualify on either one of them. This one's tempting, but again, you don't have much room there. So if you take that, the only way you could take this one is if you let it drop, you let it break higher and then drop a limit order and hope it comes back, and it might have. So you could have entered on this one right here. I didn't mark it, but I'll at least mark that green. Now that with that clarification of how you'd have to enter that, we run on up. These failed breakouts often become important lows, and here it was again. It didn't go real high, but that's still a fairly nice move considering, you know, the opportunities we've had in the afternoon. So anyway, we just we come up here, we finally get a break here, and you get a first entry short, and then you get a second entry short, and that it's one of those one tick failures. It fails right on that little support area right there, and you might have even had this support right there. It really fits better. I had it a little higher, but you probably should have moved it to right here. And it breaks higher right there. It's a fairly big bar that late in the afternoon, but it's probably going to trap people, and you would expect a retest of the high, and we might get a retest of this high, so you might have some more room to go there. So I like that trade. We didn't do much after that, but we're getting so close to 3 o'clock, and lately after 3 o'clock, nothing much happens at all. So people just kind of are all done by 3 o'clock. So that's what I saw today. I moved through this one pretty quickly today, just simply because I need to get out of here, and it's already almost 5 o'clock, and I've got somewhere I've got to be. But anyway, yeah, it's just more sideways action. I mean, this is a range day for the most part because here's your overnight lows, here's your overnight highs. We never got outside that. Although there's no clear support or resistance that you could really trade today, other than maybe some shorts up here, and I'm just not crazy about that little tight range there. So there really was no way to trade this as a range because we didn't get any, we never were up here at the resistance area, and we're never down here. You know, we made this and we didn't hang around down here. So you just don't get a real opportunity to trade this as a range day, even though that's what it is overall. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.